Alright, what's good, y'all? Hello, I'm Riding the Fams here, back with another vid. This one's a retake, so to speak, okay? So if y'all saw the previous one where I did this, I realized that I was getting way off topic and I didn't stay focused at the task at hand of what the video was meant to do. This one, hopefully, I'll be able to stay on task and, do what needs to be done, keep it as simple as I can. So this particular vid is about, of course, Linux. But while it's about Linux, it's also trying to prepare people for what's going to happen in October, where, of course, support for Windows 10 is going to shut down in October. Now, as we all know, obviously with Windows doing this, they want everyone to go over to Windows 11. But as we also know, not everyone's too thrilled about Windows 11, rightfully so. Even I'm not too thrilled about Windows 11. That's why I came to Linux in the first place. So what I want to do is offer a couple, you know, distributions, a couple, versions of Linux to where it would at least give people that alternative. So that way they don't have to feel trapped and think, oh damn, I have no choice, I need to go over to Windows 11, when that isn't the case. You have your options, you absolutely have them there. You just have to want to commit to it when the time comes. So in that case, let's just get right to it. Let's show off what Linux is, to a couple people. Now for me, what I'm using here, I'm not going to show in this video. What I'm using is Catchy OS. And of course, Catchy is meant for me personally as a gamer, but while it's as a gaming distribution, it also gives me that freedom to where I can afford to add in whatever it is I want to add. Now there's a few I'm going to talk about. There's two I'm going to talk about that are gaming distros, and there's two that I'm going to talk about that are not gaming distros, but they can do gaming. However, their main use is meant for like office work or just chilling out, just to chill with it. You know what I mean? If you want things that are, unbroken and used to wear how you have it, that's what it is. And of course, the one I'm going to mention, while it's mainly used for office work, it's also one that is, of course, similar to Windows. At least it's similar as it's going to get. So let's get down to it, shall we? So this one here, shout out to Mimosa Tech, because he showed this off. I had no idea this was a thing. My bad if my mic is peaking or something like that. I wanted to make sure it wasn't as low as it was last time, because I had someone comment and tell me, "Oh, you need to go get a new mic." So if it is too low, if it is too high, just tone the volume down a little bit, because it's mainly just going to be me speaking. Now you may see some gameplay up here and there, you may, but really the main focus of this is to show you, what these distros can do. So here's the Commander one. If you guys are used to Windows 7 and you loved how Windows 7 operated at the time, I know that's as far back. That's a long ass time, for Windows 7. But hey, the way how I see it is this: everything was good with Windows 7 with certain old laptops, which I'm also going to point out here. Some of these Linux distributions, while I'm pointing out, are meant for office work, they're also very good for reviving these old laptops or old computers that you once used and you had a lot of fun with. Because of course, obviously, there's no more support for Windows 7 anymore. There's obviously no support for 8, although nobody fucked with 8. And of course, now Windows 10 is dying. But at the very least, you can replicate what you had back then if you loved it that much. So as you can see, this is Commander Linux 2.1 Bulalo, I guess. So if y'all really did have a great time with Windows 7 and you wanted the closest experience you can to that, but in Linux, well, that's what you have this here for. And as you can see, like, you got your Chrome, your Office stuff here. You got your, I guess this is GIMP right here in the bottom left. That's what that is. Of course, you got Chrome. I already mentioned Chrome. You have some shit here. that you can really, really work with and use and have a good time with it. Now, of course, they also have the terminal, which in Linux, you're going to be making yourself right at home with depending on the distribution you decide to use. Um, to basically make it simple, when it goes to the, I guess, the console, or in Windows case, the command, the CMD, don't be afraid to use it. Really, like really, really don't be afraid to use it. Like actually, take your time to sit down and use it. And if you do get stuck, that's why you have these discords. That's why you have these people that are here. There's times where I got stuck with having to set certain shit up, only to find out, be like, oh, okay, it was supposed to be something as simple as this, and you got this, and there you go. It's some simple shit. Don't be afraid to pick people's brains when it goes to the console. It's always good to have around, when you're in a Discord and you need some help. But as I'm rambling on, you're looking at this for yourself, how really, really similar that this distribution is for, from Windows 7. So if you're used to having that kind of thing, and you're used to just not having to fuck with the console that much, only fuck with it here and there, and you just want a nice similar experience to what you had, well, this is what you have. This is what you got here. But if isn't, as you can see, even the fucking menu when you pull it up is very similar, and that's really, really cool. But if this isn't it, if Windows 7 isn't it, I'm gonna give you the ones that I used that were very, that helped me streamline my process when it goes to Linux, and why I've been so used to it so far. Now, I'm not going to sit here and act like everything was all sunshine and rainbows with Linux. There were times where I was struggling with Linux. There were times I had to lock in to fix whatever it was I had to fix with Linux. But at the same time, I felt like it was more so a me problem, not more so a problem with what I was using. There was only one instance where I felt like it was a problem that was out of my hands, and that's why I had to leave it. So, this is particularly with Linux. So I'm gonna go ahead and give you the ones I used. Of course, the ones I used first was Linux Mint. This was the first one I had used because this was all I had looked up on. This is all I had heard about. When I went to, oh, okay, this is for newcomers. If you really want to hop into Linux and see what it's all about, please pick Linux Mint. That's all I was hearing. And honestly, I'm gonna echo that statement. I can personally say this. Along with that first one I showed you with Commander, this, for me, because I don't know much about Commander, I never used it before, this I can tell you with Linux Mint is fucking amazing. In fact, this is amazing enough to where we have an old computer back in like 2016, maybe 2017, old computer that my mom uses for office work down in the living room. That thing was stuck on Windows 10 for God knows how long, and it moved tremendously slow. But the minute I put Linux Mint in that computer, it almost like Linux Mint gave that shit new life. It runs so fucking smooth on old computers, and it's perfectly made for this kind of work, where this is just for office shit. When you want to relax, when you want to look up some casual shit and chill out, this is good for that. This is amazing for that. But this is not to say that Linux Mint can't do gaming. It can absolutely do gaming. It can do gaming in spades. Probably not, like, I don't know if it does as good as, of course, the gaming distributions I'm going to show you in a little bit. But it does a very good job at doing what it needs to do. And that's to give you less of a worry when you're moving over from Windows to Linux, and give you more of the smoother experience, that it is to come in. Obviously when you come in, it's going to be foreign territory to you. You've been so used to how shit runs on Windows. Now you take your ass to Linux and it's like, God damn, this shit is so foreign to me. But Linux Mint does a good job of making this as smooth an experience as possible, with getting you used to certain shit that you were already used to begin with when you were on Windows. Plus, the best thing that comes with it is, of course, there's no bloatware. The only time it'd be bloatware is if you make it bloatware. You know what I mean? It'll be like that if you make it like that. And even then, Linux Mint does a very good job of just booting up the computer, running shit, and just running the shit as fast as it can on old hardware and blazing fast on newer hardware. Because for me, y'all know with me, I run an SSD. I have a 4 terabyte SSD. So, of course, you already know when I boot this shit up, it's lightning quick. Not as lightning quick as what I'm currently using, but lightning quick enough to where you could tell it's very, very noticeable. And with the whole desktop layout they got here with Cinnamon, it illustrates the point. But one more thing with Linux that makes it just as good. Now, you see the whole Cinnamon desktop here, right? I think this is one thing I love, not just with Linux Mint, but probably Linux in general, is if you don't want to stick with the Cinnamon layout, you don't have to. If you want to go someplace else with it, you can do that. You have the option to do that. So say if you want to go from Cinnamon to KDE, which is in my opinion, KDE Plasma is practically Windows 10 for a desktop environment. Like how I showed you here. Like how I showed you here, where this is like Windows 7. Right now, what I'm currently using is basically Windows 10. Now, y'all don't see it like how it is because, of course, I got all these icons and shit in the middle. But if I make them move all the way over to the left and I keep this as a blank space in the middle, that's basically Windows 10 for you. So, that is what that's what KDE is for me, and that's how similar this is for me. That's how good it is for me. But yeah, Linux Mint to start out first and foremost is absolutely amazing, and I hope that if there was one distro that if I had to recommend that anyone to come in from Windows to Linux, this is priority one before anything. Because for me, it's as simple as this. If you just want to get used to Linux, if you want to know how it operates, know how it works, use this shit, use it for as long as you can, and there's no rush on having to switch to anything else. Now, for me, I moved out within like at least a couple months because I saw something that fit me at the time. But if you're in no rush, and that's one other thing I love about Linux, is where you could go from Linux Mint to Arch Linux to Ubuntu, Lubuntu, don't matter. You can go to any of these and while it'll be a slightly different experience, it's still Linux at the end of the day, and you're still already familiar and used to how certain shit work. This is not like, say, okay, with Windows where you can switch from Windows 10 to Windows 7 and Windows 11 and expect to get the same experience. It's not going to be like that. But with Linux, it's very much like that because it's like having different flavors of ice cream. And you're just trying one out until you get one that you can stick with. This is that case. But yeah, Linux Mint is phenomenal. Now, these that I just showed you were the two office versions, I should say, that I would say, check out. Especially when it goes reviving an old laptop, an old computer, and you still want to give Linux a shot, I'll say go ahead and go with these two. Go with Linux Mint and go with either Commander or go with, there was another office-like environment. I think I have it on my laptop, but I forgot the name of it. But I made sure to install that on my old laptop, and that's even doing good on there. So Linux does a very good job of having to revive old stuff that you still have a use for. Now, in terms of newer things, modern things, gaming stuff, right? Gaming distributions I would tell you to check out. Let's start with one first and foremost, such as Bazite. Bazite was my I should say my first true, really true distribution to use for Linux, because as much as I liked having Linux Mint, I knew that if I would have just moved over to Bazite, it'd be a whole different ball game, and it sure as hell was. When I moved over to Bazite, you can see here, this is the KDE thing I was talking about earlier. When I moved over, all I could say was, oh shit, this is what I'm looking for. This is the gaming distribution shit I'm looking for. This is what I installed Linux for. Because for me, at the end of the day, I am a gamer. You can see by the whole setup, I'm a streamer. You know, this is what I love to do anytime I get on my computer is game. I love to watch some anime here and there, but I absolutely love the game. But not only do I want it for gaming, I also wanted it for some, daily shit that I do. And Bazite for me was scratching that itch for a long ass time. It was scratching the itch throughout half the year for me when I installed it. And it did a very good job at doing what it wanted to do. Now, I'm going to be honest, if it wasn't for one particular thing with Bazite, I would have stayed on Bazite. I wouldn't even be on Catchy OS. I would have been completely content with being on Bazite and calling it a day. For some reason, I'm trying to show more videos of Bazite, but of course it's just people talking shit about their PC setup, so my apologies for this. But goes to show you, I mean, shit, you can take a look at it just for yourself. With all these videos I'm showing you here, Bazite does a phenomenal job at doing what it wanted to do. If you were starting out and you just wanted some gaming shit to work, it does great with this. It does amazing with this. Now, as for the one con that I had, what made me want to leave Bazite? Well, it's crazy because it's a simple one, but if you're someone like me that wanted to get into racing, that's where the issue starts to come by. So because of Bazite being a immutable distro, so I'll go ahead and make that a little simple. What does an immutable distro mean? For anyone that's either coming into Linux or is new to Linux and has, trying to pick up on certain shit. Immutable is basically where there's certain shit within a distribution that basically you can do until, of course, you'll basically get locked out. You're limited on certain shit you can do. So let's say, which this what made me to leave, when I wanted to use my steering wheel, my racing wheel that I had at the time until I sadly had to give it up. It was a Logitech G923 racing wheel. The problem is that because of Bazite using RPM Ostry, for some reason these are some differences in Linux that you're gonna have to get used to when you pull up that command, that console. And you got to put on certain commands. Because of RPM, it doesn't support my racing wheel. I even looked it up on GitHub if there was any solutions to this, and there was none. There was none. So if you're a racing fan and you're trying to port over your racing wheel from Windows to Bazite, I'm going to tell you, you're not going to have a good time. You're probably not going to have a good time. And I don't know if this goes for every other racing wheel, but I know this for me. When I went from Bazite to a different one, which is of course this one, my racing wheel worked just fine. My G923 racing wheel worked just good, and I didn't have any install issues, nothing like that. But with Bazite having the issue that it's had, it really hurt me because I wanted to stay on Bazite. I have no issues with Bazite besides that one thing, which for me was fatal enough to where it had me want to move. But other than that, if you're not worried about racing, Bazite does its job. Besides Linux Mint, besides Commander, if you're used to Windows as in Windows 7 as an operating system, Bazite is the best of the best for me when it goes to gaming, but also best of the best to me when it goes to getting people used to Linux, getting people used to how this shit work around there. Here's one last one that I will go. It's Nubara. Now, the way that I look at Nubara, it's different to Bazite, but it's still good enough. I say different in that sense to where it's like, okay, when you go into Nubara, you'll definitely see and feel the differences between Bazite and between Nubara, but they're very similar to one another, but they're also very different. I don't know if it's because of the setup, or if it's because of how fast it moves, or if it's because of course, Nubara having its own package manager. So the guy that did the GE Protons, which you'll know what this is when you get into Linux, the guy that did the GE Protons, he made Nubara, and he did a very good job at trying to, I guess I should say, close the gap between Bazite. I don't know if it's competing with Bazite or if it's competing with any other ones, but I know it does a very good job at getting people used to how it all works. Now, I didn't use Nubara for long. I can tell you this now. I did not use Nubara for long, but I did use it enough to where, look, it's the same thing like how it was with my current current OS, which is, of course, I'm using Catchy OS, where I'm able to set my wheel up from here. Also, one plus, I'm gonna tell you this with Bazite, I forgot to mention this. You have the whole wallpaper engine thing. Bazite comes with this pre-installed. Everything else you're gonna have to install personally, but when you do install it, it works pretty good. But everything worked pretty good with Nubara. I don't have really much of an issue to really say or state with it. Now, granted, I'm not all tech heavy when it goes to Linux, nor am I tech heavy in general. I'm just only going to state my experiences at how I feel with them. How did it all go with me? And I gotta tell you, these two gaming distributions are the best ones to get started with. Now, I would mention Catchy OS here, but there's a reason I didn't mention Catchy OS. And Catchy OS is very, very good, but I also know Arch Linux can be a bit daunting for people. Now, I know Catchy OS is trying to bridge that gap between making it hard as hell and making it beginner friendly. But right now, until they continue to do what they're going to do to try to bridge that gap, I'm not going to mention it here. Only because of the simple fact that, look, we have these other ones here, and I want people to get used to all of these other ones. I want people to get used to the Office ones. I want people to get used to the two gaming ones I've mentioned here. But as you can see, these, the wallpaper engine and the customization that comes with these, it's pretty fucking amazing. It's pretty damn good with what it can do. Now, I am going to showcase a little bit of what Linux can do, if that's okay. Of course, I'm able to pull up VC Face here. If you guys are a VTuber, you can use this. You can pull up the EA app here if you got some games you want to play from EA. You could do the same thing when it goes to Ubisoft Connect, the Epic Game Store, and GOG. But there's also one launcher in particular that does a very good job of it. I'm sure y'all heard of it. It's called the Heroic Game Launcher. So I would say, in terms of using the Epic Game Store and probably GOG, go check that out instead of using Lutris. But sure, you know what? Why not? Let's pull up the Citra one. I want to pull up the emulator one just so I can show y'all. It does very good work. Very, very good work. I know I did a lot of talking today, but it's the best I can to to make it as easy as I can, to streamline y'all as much as I can. But yeah, this is. Let me go and set my controls up real quick. I actually forgot to do this. But yeah, as you can see, it's pretty fucking easy. It's not a big deal. It's not a hassle as people want to make it out to be with Linux. But I can understand the fear that comes with having to move from one end to the other, and then particularly not only keep your stuff, but then it's like, oh, I want to keep my stuff, but then it's also like, oh shit, I want to leave Windows. You know, you can do that. You can eat your cake and have it when it goes to Linux. Now, if there is some bit of issues I can see you having with Linux that I am going to state, and this is why even for me I still keep Windows around. I still have Windows 10. There's a reason for it. Because there's certain games, of course, if you're a gamer, you'll have this problem. If you're not a gamer, you won't give a fuck. There's certain games that you want to play, but you can't play it on Linux, and it's not even because of Linux's fault. It's because of the anti-cheat that these gaming programs set you up with. You know what I mean? There's only so much of that you can do. But yeah, as you can see, it's running this emulator just fine. It's running the Citra emulator absolutely fine. Yes, I still use Citra because I don't have Azahar. But you can see, not a big deal. Not a big problem. Runs pretty good. Runs pretty smooth. And this is on one of the daunting emulators to actually try to run for a setup. So this is just me showing y'all how it can go when it goes to gaming. I don't know where the fuck am I going. I didn't even activate a mission yet. But yeah, I'm gonna just give y'all some. I'm gonna just give you like, not really a full-on hunt, but I just want to show y'all how it all go. But yeah, even loading into a game like this, it's not a big deal. It can do it when, you know, if you have not only have the setup, but you know, it also helps when you don't have bloatware, when you don't have all this other crap to worry about. That's usually a problem. Now I can show more, but you get my point with me having to even show this. Alright. Okay. Go ahead inside this area. This will really help and see. Come on, go ahead. See? Oof. This for my Monster Hunter people, you could definitely do that. Yes, I would play Wilds right now, which also works very well with this. Yes, it needed a mod, but still, it does its job. No, I'm not healing. If I die, I die. But yeah, it goes to show you, this shit is not bad. Okay, you can kill me. Alright. But yeah, that's just to show y'all the power of what Linux can do. This is a strong ass emulator to run, okay? Don't count Citra out. So the fact that it can run that with damn near no problems, plus with the setup I got, it's, it can do a very good job. It can run that well. It can run the PS2 well, the GameCube emulator well. It can run emulators fairly well. Usually all of them can do it. Even the Office ones, they can do it. They usually run it very, very well, and you won't have an issue. But yeah. Other than that, man, that's all I gotta say. 30 minutes is enough. So y'all go ahead and try out these distros for yourself and have yourself a good time, okay? If y'all need any help, I'll try to help as much as I can. But till then, every second, every minute, every hour y'all spend with me is every second and every minute, every hour I'm blessed and thankful for. You guys have yourself a good rest of the day, night, or evening when you watch this. And hopefully I'll see you for the next vid. Bye.